Before we begin, understand this: if you think maximum security prisons are unbreakable, you're already wrong. Subscribe, like, and stay close, because tonight's story proves the walls don't always protect you. Sometimes, they trap you inside with the truth. The alarm didn't sound. That was the first sign something was wrong. At 2:17 a.m., in the heart of Grayford State Penitentiary, one of the largest mega prisons in the United States, the surveillance grid went dark for exactly 74 seconds. 74 seconds in a facility that housed over 4,000 high-risk inmates. 74 seconds inside a place designed to see everything. When the monitors flickered back on, Correctional Officer Daniel Mercer was lying face down in Corridor C, blood spreading slowly across the polished concrete beneath him. The doors were still locked. The inmates were still inside their cells. The control room swore no manual overrides had been triggered, but Daniel Mercer was dead, and someone had used the prison's own security system to do it. Detective Laura Bennett arrived before sunrise. The sky over Grayford was steel gray, matching the massive perimeter walls crowned with razor wire and surveillance towers. From the outside, it looked like a fortress. From the inside, it felt like a machine, humming, automated, precise. She stepped into the control room first. Rows of screens covered the walls, each displaying different angles of the prison: cell blocks, cafeteria, exercise yard, isolation units. Every movement was recorded, logged, time-stamped. Except between 2 hours 17 minutes and 3 seconds and 2 hours 18 minutes and 17 seconds. That's the blackout window, said Warden Thomas Keller, his voice tight. No footage, no audio, nothing. Laura folded her arms. System failure, Keller hesitated. That's what we thought. But the internal diagnostics show no malfunction. Then what does it show? He swallowed. A remote command. The room went still. From inside or outside? Laura asked. Inside. Grayford wasn't just any prison. It was a technological experiment: facial recognition cameras, biometric scanners on every cell door, motion detection sensors embedded in ceilings, predictive behavioral software tracking inmate movement patterns. It was marketed as escape-proof. Now it looked compromised. Laura moved to the crime scene in Corridor C. Yellow tape cut across the walkway between 2 rows of reinforced steel cells. Inmates stood silently behind bars, watching with unreadable expressions. Mercer had been a 10-year veteran. No disciplinary complaints. No known enemies among staff or inmates. The autopsy would later confirm blunt force trauma to the back of his head. Quick, efficient, personal. There was no sign of forced entry, said Captain Elias Ward, head of internal security. No unlocked doors, no breach checkpoints. Laura studied the hallway. Cameras every 15 feet, panic buttons at both ends. Magnetic locks controlled exclusively from the central hub. So someone disables the cameras, she said slowly, kills a guard, and restores the system before anyone notices. Ward nodded grimly. In 74 seconds, she looked up at the nearest camera. Who has clearance to override security protocols? Ward exchanged a glance with the warden. 5 people, Keller said. Myself, Ward, 2 senior IT engineers. And the security systems architect. Name, Adrian Cross. Laura found Cross in the prison's technology wing, a secured area sealed behind fingerprint access and retinal scanners. He was younger than she expected. Mid-30s, sharp jawline, wire-rimmed glasses, sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. He didn't look like someone who built digital walls around violent men. I designed Grayford's security grid, Cross said calmly. It's a closed-loop system. External breaches are virtually impossible. Virtually. Laura pressed. He gave a tight smile. Nothing is impossible. But it would require internal access. You mean someone like you? Cross didn't flinch. I was home at 2:17 a.m. My access logs will show no login. They show no login from anyone, Laura replied. But someone issued a command. Cross leaned toward his keyboard, pulling up system diagnostics. There's something else, he said quietly. Laura stepped closer. The blackout wasn't a shutdown, he explained. It was a camera loop. Her pulse ticked up. Explain. For 74 seconds, the system replayed recorded footage from earlier in the night. Anyone watching would think everything was normal. So someone didn't just turn off the cameras, she said. They replaced reality. Cross nodded. And that takes expertise, Laura said. Yes, he replied. It does, By midday, rumors spread through the inmate population. A guard killed inside a locked corridor was more than an incident, it was a message. Laura requested a full audit of staff communications. Phone records, financial statements, background checks. One name kept surfacing in whispers among officers. Marcus Vale, inmate 44,721, serving life without parole for orchestrating a multi-state cyber fraud ring that cost investors millions. Before prison, Vale had been a cybersecurity prodigy, recruited by tech giants before turning criminal mastermind. Inside Grayford, he worked in the library. Far from the tech wing, Laura requested an interview. Vale entered the visitation room in shackles, posture relaxed, eyes calculating. He looked more like a graduate student than a convicted felon. "You're investigating Officer Mercer," he said smoothly before she could speak. "Terrible tragedy. You seem informed," Laura replied. "News travels fast in cages," he said. "Especially when the lights blink." Laura watched him carefully. "What do you know about Grayford's surveillance grid?" Vale smiled faintly. "Only what everyone knows. Cameras everywhere. Algorithms predicting fights before they happen. Guards relying on screens instead of instinct. Could an inmate manipulate it?" He tilted his head. "Not without access. And if someone inside had help?" Vale leaned forward slightly, chains clinking softly. "Then the system wasn't as secure as advertised." Laura held his gaze. "Where were you at to 17 a.m.? "In my cell," he said. As always, his alibi checked out. Cell logs showed no door movement. Motion sensors indicated he hadn't left his bunk. Yet Laura couldn't shake the feeling he was enjoying this. That evening, forensic techs recovered something small but critical from Mercer's uniform. A flash drive. It had been hidden inside his inner pocket. Laura stared at it in the evidence bag. "Why would a correctional officer carry this?" she asked. "They plugged it into an isolated system." One file, encrypted. Adrian Cross was called in to assist. As he began decoding, his confidence faded. "This encryption," he murmured. "It's internal architecture code." Laura's stomach tightened. Meaning someone extracted pieces of Grayford's security blueprint. The file decrypted. On the screen appeared detailed schematics, camera blind spots, maintenance access tunnels, manual override sequences. And at the bottom of the document, a digital signature, not Marcus Vale, not an inmate. It belonged to Adrian Cross, the architect of the prison's security system. Laura slowly turned toward him. Cross stared at the screen, pale. "That's impossible," he whispered, but impossible was exactly what had just become real. And as officers moved to detain him for questioning, another alert echoed through the control room. Sector D camera malfunction. Again. Only this time, it wasn't 74 seconds. The screens were still black, and somewhere inside Grayford's concrete labyrinth, something was moving. When the cameras in Sector D went dark, the silence inside Grayford prison wasn't panic. It was anticipation. In the control room, Detective Laura Bennett watched technicians scramble. The blackout timer ticked past 50 seconds. "This isn't a loop," one of the engineers said, his voice shaking. "This is a live override from an internal node." Warden Keller barked into his radio. "Lock down Sector D." No one in or out. Steel doors slammed shut, the heavy thud echoing like distant thunder. The prison was sealing itself, but Laura wondered if the machine was obeying the right master. Across the room, the system's creator, Adrian Cross, sat restrained. "That signature on the flash drive wasn't mine," he said quietly. "It was copied." Laura didn't turn. "You expect us to believe someone forged your digital identity?" "Yes," Cross replied. "Because I'm looking at it happen again." He nodded toward a screen where lines of code scrolled rapidly. Someone was impersonating him in real time. Suddenly, Sector D's cameras flickered back on. The image froze the entire room. Cell D14, belonging to inmate Marcus Vale, stood wide open. "Empty. Impossible," Captain Ward muttered. His door never unlocked. The engineer's face went pale. "There are no manual override logs." They zoomed the hallway camera. Marcus Vale was walking calmly down the corridor. He stopped directly under a camera, looked up, and smiled. Then the screen cut to static. Tactical units flooded the sector. Inmates were on the floor. Cells were searched, but Vale was gone. No forced doors, no broken locks. Grayford had simply swallowed him. Search maintenance shafts, ventilation ducts, every blind spot, Laura ordered. You think he had the schematics? Ward asked. Laura's mind raced. Officer Mercer had them. Cross's signature was forged. And Vale had a background in cybersecurity. The dots were connecting. Cross spoke up. If Vale is inside the network, he's not just navigating it, he's rewriting it. He explained that Grayford's AI system doesn't just observe, it learns. It uses predictive behavioral analytics to flag potential violence before it happens. When we launched Grayford, Cross continued, we fed it 10 years of prison data. The AI built behavioral models. Laura pressed him, and Cross replied. And 6 months ago, Marcus Vale started studying the system's own behavior through library databases. If he studied enough, he could predict how it predicts him. Laura stared at the screens. You're telling me he outsmarted an AI designed to outsmart him? Cross nodded. I'm telling you he learned its blind spots. A shout came from an officer monitoring thermal scans. Heat signature in sublevel 2. Sublevel 2 wasn't on the public blueprints. It housed the veins of Grayford's digital nervous system. Laura grabbed a tactical vest and headed for the stairwell. Down in the cold, narrow corridors, they found him. At the end of the hall stood Marcus Vale, hands raised slowly. It's over, Ward shouted. Vale just chuckled. You're about 15 minutes too late. You killed Officer Mercer. Laura asked. Vale's expression hardened. No, I didn't steal the blueprints, I exposed them. Expose what? She demanded. Vale gestured to the humming servers around them. You think this prison predicts violence, it manufactures it. He explained how the AI flags inmates for minor issues, causing guards to react aggressively. This creates tension and incidents, which the system then logs as proof that its predictions were right. You're saying the AI creates the outcomes it claims to prevent, Laura said quietly. Yes, Vale replied, and Mercer found out. He saw the feedback loop. He confronted someone. Who? Vale's eyes moved upward. The architect doesn't just design walls, he designs behavior. Laura turned sharply to Cross. That's not true, Cross insisted, but doubt flickered across his face. I built safeguards, ethical parameters. Vale smiled faintly. And who audits the safeguards? Before anyone could answer, the lights flickered and a new alarm blared. System override. Back in the control room, monitors showed doors unlocking and locking across the prison. Chaos, but controlled chaos. Someone else is inside the network, a voice crackled over the radio. Top-level access. Cross went pale. That's not Vale. Vale's smile was gone. No, he said softly. It isn't. On the main display upstairs, a single message appeared. Architect override confirmed. And beneath it, a name. Not Marcus Vale. Not Adrian Cross. Warden Thomas Keller. Laura's breath caught. The prison hadn't been compromised from below. It had been controlled from the top, all along. And the man sworn to protect the walls was now rewriting them. What happens next? You'll have to subscribe to find out. Thanks for watching. The control room doors were locked from the inside. When Detective Laura Bennett and Captain Ward reached the upper tier, the reinforced glass panels revealed chaos behind them. Screens flashed red warnings. Cell doors across multiple sectors cycled open and shut in staggered patterns. Officers were shouting into radios that no longer answered back. And at the center of it all stood Warden Thomas Keller, calm, focused, and touchable. He didn't look like a man losing control of his prison. He looked like a man conducting it. Override codes accepted, an automated voice echoed from the central console. Architect-level access confirmed. Laura slammed her fist against the glass. Keller opened the door. He turned slowly. For a moment, there was no panic in his eyes, only calculation. Then he pressed a button, and the door unlocked with a hydraulic hiss. Ward rushed in first, weapon raised. Step away from the console. Keller didn't resist. He lifted his hands slightly, but his expression never cracked. You don't understand what you're seeing, he said evenly. Laura stepped forward. Then explain it. Behind him, the massive display wall showed a real-time schematic of Grayford State Penitentiary, heat maps, movement patterns, predictive aggression spikes. Entire sectors glowed yellow and red. You think this is corruption, Keller said. It's optimization. Doors are cycling open across multiple blocks, Ward snapped. You're destabilizing a maximum security facility. No, Keller corrected. I'm proving a point. Laura's jaw tightened. The same point Mercer discovered. For the first time, Keller hesitated. That was all the confirmation she needed. You killed him, she said quietly. Keller's voice dropped. Daniel Mercer was going to expose incomplete data. Incomplete, Laura demanded. Keller walked toward the main screen and tapped a section of scrolling analytics. When Grayford launched its predictive security AI, he said, we promised a reduction in violence. Funding depended on it. Federal contracts depended on it. So you manipulated the numbers. Laura asked. I refined the environment, he replied. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus Vale's warning echoed in Laura's mind. The system manufactures what it claims to prevent. You fed the AI selective data, she realized, triggered minor infractions, encouraged heightened responses. Keller didn't deny it. The algorithm needed calibration, he said. Without real-world stimulus, it stagnates. To predict chaos, it must experience it. Ward stared at him in disbelief. You put lives at risk for a performance report. Keller's composure cracked slightly. I ensured long-term safety. Grayford became the national model. Violence statistics dropped, on paper and in reality. At what cost? Laura asked. He didn't answer. The monitors suddenly shifted. Sector B flashed red, an altercation breaking out between two inmates whose cell doors had been temporarily unlocked during the override cycle. Officers were scrambling to contain it. You're losing control, Ward warned. Keller shook his head. No. I anticipated escalation thresholds. The system is stabilizing. Laura saw it then, the belief in his own design. Keller wasn't acting out of greed or chaos. He genuinely believed the prison had to be stress-tested, manipulated, pushed to the edge to function perfectly. You engineered tension to justify tighter control, she said. And when Mercer found the audit logs, you silenced him. Keller's eyes darkened. He confronted me in Corridor C. He threatened to go public. Do you know what would have happened? Federal shutdown. Thousands of inmates transferred. Real riots. Real blood. So you hit him, Laura said flatly. He slipped. Keller replied quickly. It wasn't planned, but his voice lacked conviction. And the blackout, she pressed. I used my override clearance, he admitted. Loop the cameras. 74 seconds. Enough to move him. Cross, who had been standing near the entrance under guard, stepped forward, face pale. You used my digital signature to access subroutines. Keller gave him a thin smile. You designed a brilliant system, Adrian. But you underestimated administrative authority. Cross looked devastated. You turned it into a weapon. I turned it into a success, Keller shot back. An alarm pierced the room, louder this time. Sector D, the same block where Marcus Vale had vanished. Laura's heart pounded. Thermal detection spike, an officer shouted from a side console. Maintenance shaft breach. The screen displayed grainy footage from sublevel 2. Marcus Vale was there again, not fleeing, not hiding. Standing beside an open server rack. What is he doing? Ward demanded. Cross rushed to the console despite his restraints. He's not attacking the system. He's isolating it. Lines of code began severing from the main network one by one. He's partitioning core functions, Cross said urgently. If he completes it, Keller loses architect control. Keller lunged toward the console, but Ward intercepted him. You don't get to fix this, Ward growled. On screen, Vale looked up at the camera and spoke directly into it. You built a prison that learns, he said calmly. Now it's time it learns the truth. He inserted a device into the server port. Data began uploading. What is he sending? Laura asked. Cross's fingers flew across the keyboard. His eyes widened. The internal audit logs, he whispered. The original unfiltered violence data, the manipulated projections. Keller's override history. Laura felt the weight of it. He's broadcasting it, she asked. Cross nodded. 2 external oversight servers, Federal Justice Department endpoints. Media watchdog networks. Keller went still. You can't prove context, he said weakly. The final upload bar reached 100%. Across the main screen, architect-level privileges were revoked. Override access denied. Thomas Keller's control vanished in a single line of code. Moments later, tactical teams secured Marcus Vale in sublevel 2. This time, there was no disappearing act. He surrendered without resistance. As Keller was placed in restraints, the prison slowly stabilized. Door cycles ceased, camera feeds returned to standard surveillance. The AI recalibrated to default settings. Grayford's walls stood firm again. But something inside them had shattered. Weeks later, Federal investigations confirmed Keller's manipulation of predictive data and unauthorized overrides. His attempt to protect Grayford's reputation had exposed a far darker truth, that control, when left unchecked, can become its own form of corruption. Adrian Cross faced scrutiny but was ultimately cleared of intentional wrongdoing. The system he built was restructured under independent oversight, and Marcus failed. He remained behind bars, charged not with murder, but with unauthorized system intrusion and data theft. Yet in a twist no one expected, his actions had forced transparency. Officer Daniel Mercer's death was ruled a criminal act of administrative misconduct. Laura Bennett stood outside Grayford one final time before returning to her precinct. The prison looked the same as it had that first morning, towering walls, silent watchtowers, cameras scanning endlessly, but she understood something now. Security systems don't fail because of code, they fail because of people. Inside every mega prison is a network of steel, software, and human ambition. And when ambition overrides accountability, the walls don't just hold inmates. They hide secrets. 3 months later, Laura received a sealed federal memo. Grayford's predictive AI had been quietly reinstated under a new name, revised architecture, expanded funding, optimized. She stared at the final line of the report. Performance indicators show improved compliance metrics. No mention of Mercer, no mention of Keller, just numbers. Outside the prison, life moved on. Inside, the cameras kept watching. And somewhere within that endless stream of data, the system continued to learn. If you think this story was intense, remember this: the most dangerous security systems aren't the ones that break, they're the ones that work exactly as designed. And the next time the lights blink for 74 seconds, no one may be there to expose what happens in the dark. If you're not ready to question what protects you, you're not ready for the next story.